Once upon a time, there was a man named Harriya who lived in a small town with his wife and 2 children. Harriya was hardworking and always tried different businesses to support his family, but somehow nothing ever worked out for him. The reason was that whatever business Harriya started, his clever neighbor Madhav would copy him and somehow manage to attract more customers. If Harriya started selling vegetables, Madhav would start selling them too at a lower price. If Harriya opened a tea stall, Madhav would open one next to it and make sure his tea tasted better. One day, Harriya sat outside his small house looking worried. His wife Seda sat beside him. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. "What else?" Harriya sighed. "Whatever business I start, Madhav copies it and takes away all my customers. I don't know what to do anymore." Seda thought for a moment and said, "Why don't you try selling pumpkins? They're easy to grow and no one else is selling them in the market." Encouraged by his wife's suggestion, Harriya decided to give it a try. The next day, he bought a cart full of fresh, sweet pumpkins and set up a small stall in the market. He stood proudly and began calling out, "Come, come, sweet pumpkins for sale. You won't find better pumpkins anywhere else." At first, people gathered around Harriya's stall. His pumpkins were large and fresh, and customers were impressed. It seemed like Harriya's luck was finally turning. He started making good money and returned home that evening with a wide smile on his face. But Harriya's happiness didn't last long. The next morning when Harriya reached the market, he saw Madhav sitting right next to him selling pumpkins. And not just any pumpkins. Madhav was selling them at a cheaper rate. "Come, come, sweet pumpkins for just 20 rupees each," Madhav shouted. Slowly, Harriya's customers started walking toward Madhav's stall. Harriya's face fell as he watched his business collapse right in front of him. That night, Harriya sat at home frustrated. "Why does he always have to copy me?" he said angrily. Seda sat down beside him. "Don't worry, why don't you try selling fish instead? Not everyone knows how to handle fish. It might work this time." Harriya sighed. "Fine, I'll try one more time." The next day, Harriya went to the river, bought fresh hilsa fish, and set up a stall in the market. "Fresh hilsa fish, only 500 rupees per kilo," he shouted. People gathered around his stall. "Wow, fresh fish at a good price," someone said. Just when Harriya thought things were getting better, Madhav showed up again the very next day. Madhav started selling hilsa fish too, at 450 rupees per kilo. "Fresh hilsa fish, only 450 rupees per kilo," Madhav shouted. Once again, Harriya's customers left him and went to Madhav. Harriya's face turned red with frustration. That night, Harriya threw down his towel in anger. "I've had enough. No matter what I do, Madhav ruins it." Seda smiled knowingly. "Don't worry, I have a plan, and this time he won't be able to copy you." Curious, Harriya leaned forward. "What's the plan?" Seda whispered the idea into his ear. Harriya's eyes widened. This could work." The next morning, Harriya hired some construction workers and built a large, strong platform above his house. Once the platform was ready, he brought several goats and started raising them on the platform. A few days later, Madhav's wife noticed that Harriya was no longer selling anything in the market. Curious, she visited Harriya's house. "Seda, why isn't Harriya coming to the market these days?" she asked. Seda smiled. "Oh, we've started a new business, fish farming." Madhav's wife frowned. "Yes," Seda continued. "We've built a platform above our house and started raising fish there. The fish are growing fast. Soon we'll sell them and make a lot of money." Madhav's wife ran home and told him everything. "If Harriya can do it, why can't I?" Madhav said proudly. The very next day, Madhav built an even bigger platform above his house and bought more fish than Harriya. "I'll sell my fish before Harriya and make more money," Madhav grinned. But then the monsoon arrived. Heavy rain poured down for days. The weight of the platform filled with water weakened the structure. One night there was a loud crack. Madhav woke up to find the platform collapsing. The goats fell through the roof and water started flooding his house. Madhav and his wife stood helplessly as their house filled with water and debris. The next day, Madhav saw Harriya standing at his door, smiling. "Copying someone isn't as easy as it looks, right? Now face the consequences of your own actions. You should not be jealous of others. And all this was planned by my wife. Now do you understand the whole game?" Harriya then told him about raising the goats and selling them for 90,000 rupees. "So you were raising the goats at such a high platform without even realizing it." That evening, Harya sold his goats for 90,000 rupees and returned home with his pockets full. Seda smiled. Finally, things worked out. Harya nodded. Because this time I didn't copy anyone, and no one could copy me. From that day on, Madhav learned a valuable lesson. Success comes from originality and hard work, not from copying others. And as for Harya, his business continued to grow because now he knew the secret to success lay in thinking smart, not just working hard. Success comes not from copying others but from originality, hard work, and smart thinking. Harya faced repeated failures because Madhav kept imitating his business ideas, but when Harya used creativity and strategy, he finally achieved success.